You may have noticed I use this graphic a lot, and I love it. It's beautiful, and I love the expression, the most secure election ever. Let's talk about where this comes from. A news channel had put out a chyron, the things that go at the bottom, that said Biden elect, and it had a quote, DHS, 2020 was the most secure ever, as if the Department of Homeland Security scolds you like a teenage girl. And it just became a thing among some of the operatives. We would just see something ridiculous and be like, the most secure election ever! The most secure election ever! It's ridiculous. And it was ridiculous that adults ever put that on television. And it caught fire in the media, and it was abused to the point of gaslighting, just like widespread voter fraud.
Most secure election in American history.
Most secure in U.S. history.
The most secure election in American history.
Most secure in American history.
Most secure in history.
Most secure election in history. Most secure in American history.
Most secure in American history.
Most secure election ever.
Most secure ever.
The official quote came from Chris Krebs' cabal that released that statement, and it's equally ridiculous, and here's the story. One of the more notable stories after the 2020 election was when President Trump fired Chris Krebs. Krebs was the director of CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. He assembled a group of people to release a statement on November 12, 2020. The statement is titled, Joint Statement from Elections Infrastructure Government Coordinating Council and the Election Infrastructure Sector Coordinating Executive Committees. That name alone tells you this document is going to be awesome. Alright, it's not that impressive. But we got our quote right there. The short version is that this is a phrase cooked up by political hacks who worm their way into our electoral system. Almost every person on that list knows each other, has donated to each other, worked together, except for one Republican who was an MSNBC producer, and he was the chief of staff for Joe Scarborough. I'm not kidding. I wish I was. The most secure election statement is so audacious because we already know these people have fought election security measures since day one. After getting fired from CISA, Chris Krebs moves to the Commission on Information Disorder. That's a real name. The most fascist sounding name I've ever heard. Although the Disinformation Governance Board gives it a run for its money. That's a pretty fascist-sounding name, too. It's like a Ministry of Truth. The Commission on Information Disorder is supposed to combat misinformation about COVID vaccines, election stories, you name it. These truth ministries that have popped up they're their own rabbit holes. You can spend a lot of time on them. I do wonder if either one of these truth ministries will ever address the FBI's covering up of the Hunter Biden laptop. Maybe they could address the letter that was signed by 51 intelligence officials who declared the laptop was Russian propaganda. So you see, these truth ministries are entirely useless, they're totally fake, and it's a place where Chris Krebs and people like him belong. So why is it important to follow the saga of Chris Krebs from CISA to this Ministry of Truth or Disinformation he joined? It's important because these like-minded people who fight election security, they travel together. Remember Jennifer Morrill? She helped write that instruction manual for DeKalb County in Georgia. She runs all over the country for the National Vote at Home Institute, and more than one place says she's a subject matter expert for CISA. You start to realize these social circles had much more influence on the most secure election ever statement than someone like Chris Krebs could ever have. Here's Jennifer Morrill at Eric Coomer's barbecue in his backyard. Here's Eric Coomer in a nice looking kitchen with Stephen Bennett of Dominion Voting Systems. Here's Stephen Bennett of Dominion Voting Systems with Georgia Secretary of State guy Gabriel Sterling, who got us $200,000 from we don't know who.
From the most secure election ever!
I'm sorry, I just love it too much. So let's nail this part down. People who party with Dominion employees in Colorado sign off on statements released by CISA under Chris Krebs to cover for Dominion and other groups who bring stuff on themselves because their affiliates and many election officials working with them are fighting the DEF CON Vote Village scientist types over election security policies. These groups fight cybersecurity measures and Dropbox rules because they want an insecure, easily attackable election process.